YouTube, what's going on? Wande Films back with a new tutorial. Today, it's all about frame rates. The ins, the outs, and everything in between. Let's get started. First, I want to explain what frame rate is. Frame rate refers to the number of frames that are being recorded per second within your film. If you were using a webcam back in the early 2000s, you would know how choppy that looked, right? That's because webcams were being shot anywhere from 12 to 15 frames per second. We've come a long way since then. Your base frame rate should always be 24 frames per second if you're looking to shoot in real time. It's the most cinematic, the most pleasing to the human eye, and really it just gives off such a natural look. It's even what Hollywood movies are being filmed in. 24 frames per second. Now, if you're looking to shoot slow motion, then I would suggest you to shoot anything over 24 frames per second. That's 30, 60, 78, 96, 120, whatever your camera is capable of. So say you're shooting a music video and you want to shoot the performance shots at 24 frames per second. Go ahead and shoot your performance shots at 24 frames per second, and then when it comes time to shoot B-roll, just shoot anything over 24 frames per second. I would suggest something like 60 or 120 frames per second. That way when it comes down to post-production, all you have to do is modify your footage and bring it back down to 24 frames per second, and then you'll have smooth, slow footage. Yeah, make sure that you're shooting above 24 frames per second. If you try to shoot 24 frames per second and then bring it into your editing software, you will then notice that your 24 frames per second video will be very choppy, and it's just not the look you want to give off to your clients or anybody that's looking to watch your video. I shoot with the Sony a6300, so what I normally do is I shoot all performance shots in 4K at 24 frames per second, and then when it comes to B-roll, I just go down to 1080p and finish out B-roll at 60 frames per second or even 120 frames per second. I mean, your music videos will step it up a notch for sure. So make sure that you are shooting correctly. It's very easy to forget when you're just starting out. Trust me, I've been there. It's very easy to forget these things. Also, when it comes to shutter speed, whatever you choose to set your frame rate to, always make sure your shutter speed is doubled by whatever number that is. For example, if you shoot at 24 frames per second, make sure that your shutter speed is at 1/48. Shoot at 60 frames per second, make sure that your shutter speed is at 1/120th, and so on. Guys, I know it's very easy to forget when you're just starting out, but as time goes by, you start to progress. It comes like second nature. Hang in there, things will get better. Just keep going. This clip right here, I shot at 120 frames per second. I doubled my shutter speed to 1/250th of a second. You notice how smooth it came out. So just make sure you're following these rules. I'm gonna dive over into Premiere Pro to give you a better look at what I'm talking about. All right, guys, so now we're in Adobe Premiere, and I brought up two clips here. One of them is when I was shooting in 120 frames per second, and then the other one is when I was shooting in 24 frames per second. So let's start with the 24 frames per second real quick. I want to show you what it looks like when I try to slow it down. Check it out. All right, so this is the clip right here. Just go ahead, get the spot that you want. Put an I for in, then an O for out. Go ahead and drag it into your timeline. And then you see right here, it's playing just fine, right? Okay, so now when we go ahead and we try to slow down that 24 frames per second, we'll say we'll slow it down to 50%. Look how choppy this is. That looks horrible, right? That's not the kind of slow motion I want to be looking at when I'm watching a video. So let's go ahead and delete that. Now I'll show you how to modify and interpret the footage. You see right here, it shows that I shot this in 120 frames per second. Well, it says 119.88, but that's still 120 frames per second. So when I go to here and I'm going to hit assume this frame rate is 24 frames per second. Go ahead and hit OK. Then I'm going to go ahead, drag over where I was, drag it over. Right here it's going to say this clip does not match the sequence settings. That's because the first clip that I showed you was shot at 24 frames per second, and then the other one shot at 120. So I'm going to go ahead and say keep existing settings, and we're just going to scale this up to match the frame size. And this is what it will look like when shooting at 120 frames per second. Now you got it. That's pretty much it. That's what slow motion should look like. Alright guys, that's my tutorial on frame rate. I hope they helped you. If it did, go ahead and slap me a like. Leave a comment down below if you have any more questions. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace out guys.